It's Sunday. It's Easter. The day that changed everything. The tomb is empty. Jesus isn't there. So where is he? Where was Jesus? What was Jesus doing just hours after his resurrection on the first Easter morning? You ready for this? He was taking a walk on some backcountry road in the middle of nowhere. Not what you were expecting, huh? Well, let's see what happens. Let's give Jesus the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, come on. The day before, he was dead in the grave, and today he's walking around. It's kind of a big deal. So maybe he's got a plan. Maybe he knows what he's doing. In Luke 24, a notification about Jesus' location pops up in the story. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. They were walking to Emmaus, away from Jerusalem. The big question pops into my mind, why would Jesus be going in the wrong direction? Why would Jesus be walking away from Jerusalem? I mean, Jerusalem is the expected place for Jesus to be, right? We oftentimes look for God in the expected places, the obvious places. We have a preconceived notion about God. Well, if God's going to show up on my life, this is what it's going to look like. This is where it'll be. This is how it's going to happen. Everyone had their eyes on Jerusalem, the final destination of Jesus' return after his resurrection. We look for God in the destination, but oftentimes, God finds us in the detours. I love how God will show up in our lives despite us taking some wrong turns and walking in the wrong direction. He meets us in the journey, not just the destination. These men were reliving the details. What happened? I thought he was the one. I really believed him. Did you hear what they were yelling when he was on the cross? If you're really God, then save yourself. Why didn't he do it? They were talking about their struggles, their fears, their anxieties, and unmet expectations. And you have your own set, don't you? Your relationships, your finances, your job, your future, your health, your family. Maybe how your expectations haven't been met. Verse 15 says, Jesus himself came and walked with them. Instead of people making their way to God, God comes to us. They weren't even looking for God, and yet God was looking for them. Can you believe that hours after his resurrection, on the first Easter, Jesus is on some backcountry dirt road with two doubters taking a detour? Sound familiar? Doubters and detours. These people weren't looking for Jesus. If they were looking for Jesus, they would have stayed in Jerusalem. They weren't. You know what gives me hope? Even though they didn't believe, even though they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, walking in the wrong direction, Jesus still cared about them. Jesus was still loving them. Jesus was still coming after them. Next, Luke tells us they were kept from recognizing them. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. Kind of weird, right? Hey, what are you guys talking about? It's a wonder one of them didn't pull out a can of mace on Jesus after he snuck up on them. They stopped walking. Jesus could tell they were sad. And here's why they were sad. They were sad because life didn't end up the way they thought. The story didn't end the way they wanted. Jesus gets all up in their life, their fears and their tears, their uncertainties and their heartaches, their questions and their doubts. Jesus didn't have to ask them what they were talking about. He knew. Jesus was proving that he cared, that he was interested, that he was listening. Maybe that's the way you feel. God doesn't even care. He's not listening. Doesn't even know what I'm going through. And if he did, I wouldn't be on this detour in the first place. Feel hopeless that God has left us, deserted us. I can promise you, friends, that isn't true. Their response to Jesus was telling. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting from Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened here in these days? Are you the only one that doesn't know? Have you not checked Facebook, bro?" What a funny question. Do you even know what's going on? These guys are asking Jesus as if he has heard what happened to Jesus over the weekend. Check out his response. "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priest and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it's the third day since all of this took place." Jesus can tell that they're sad and disappointed. So he asks them a question. He sees the pain, the bitterness, and the brokenness. And who was standing on the other side of all of those unmet expectations? Jesus. Sometimes God spares you of the pain and the bitterness and the brokenness. And yet sometimes God is waiting for you on the other side of all of your greatest disappointments. These guys are frustrated. They're mad. They thought Jesus was going to save him, but they just saw Jesus die on the cross. Their expectations were shattered, dashed. Sometimes we do that with Jesus. We have expectations of what Jesus should do and how he works and what we want to see. And when Jesus doesn't play by our rules, we get a little sour. They lost their hope when things didn't happen as they expected. They never once considered this, that God would meet them in the detour, and that God is working even in the frustrations and the disappointments. Luke continues the dialogue. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but they didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. Yeah, Jesus said all this stuff was going to happen, and then it happened, and now you still don't know what happened? How did that happen? I can't prove this because the Bible doesn't say it, but I'm thinking this is the time when Jesus did the facepalm. Now Jesus' response. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe that all of the prophets had spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer those things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all of the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all of the scriptures concerning himself. Really, guys? The women went to the tomb? Why did they go there? Why do you look for the living among the dead? And wait, you said Jesus was going to resurrect on the third day. Let me do some quick math here. Sunday minus Friday, carry the one. Today is the third day. And you're on the dirt road walking in the wrong direction? Here's how the interaction comes to a climactic conclusion. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. It's a 7-mile journey from Jerusalem to Emmaus. 7 miles later, they finally get it. Maybe you thought God was going to do things one way, only to find out that He had other plans. You could be so caught up in the disappointments that you don't even realize that He's walking right beside you, with you. Didn't forget you, doesn't ignore you. He's right there with a desire to help put you back on the right path. Just because you can't recognize it doesn't mean He's not there. Could it be that God is working through the unmet expectations? 7 miles. And in the detours, in the journey, they were found by Jesus. What if a relationship with God is about a lifelong journey and not just a one-time destination? See, sometimes when you're on the road, it's hard to see Jesus in the midst of the pain and disappointment. And then you realize this: He was there the whole time, walking beside you. Mile 1, hopeless. 2, frustrated. Mile 3, mad. 4, heartbroken. 5, confused. 6, lost. 7, everything changed. You know how sometimes God explains Himself and other times He just shows up? God works through experiences and explanations. You can attend church and hear guys like me explain the Bible and unpack it and apply it, but our prayer is that you would not just experience that, but you would experience God. God's desire and plan for your life is not that you would have Jesus explained, but that you would experience Him. There will come a moment in your life when it clicks, when your eyes are open to the work that God was doing all along, that you finally wake up to the goodness and grace that God has given you. And when that happens, your entire life will change. Our 8-day journey ends with life change for those 2 men over the course of 7 miles. Hours after His resurrection, Jesus was still changing people's lives. And even after thousands of years, He's doing the same today.